Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Pop Culture Corner. Today, we're doing something special, and something that this is my favorite part of doing this doing the show. You know, I get to work with a theater chain, host Comic-Con panels, but at the end of the day, talking to people like in the industry is definitely my favorite part because it's educational, and it's just fun. Right. So a couple weeks ago, we had Chad Michael Collins back on because I didn't get to do the first interview with him. The other guys did, and so I got to do that. And then he had been in Assailant, and then so on and so forth. I got a hold of the director of the film, Tom Paton, who I'm super excited to talk about. Directors are always a special breed of people, so I cannot wait. And as always, make sure to like, share, subscribe, send it to your mother, your cousin, Billy down the street, all that good stuff. Become a member, support the show, all right? Because it's not free. You bums. With that being said, let's bring them on in. The boys, what's going on? How's everyone's day?
Hey man, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. I especially like the directors are a special breed of people intro.
Special breed of people, and they're some of the
Yeah,
best. They're some of the best. I mean,
I might print that on a t-shirt, so that people understand.
I'll make it for you. I'll make it. I'll make that shirt. Well, I mean, look, if you look at like guys like Zack Snyder, right? And how you know who Zack Snyder is, I'm sure, right?
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course.
just a
Okay.
bit.
Just got to make sure. Like guys like that, or Chris Nolan, who have tremendous fan bases, who follow them through thick and thin, and pretty much would lay down their life for them. It seems at points, right? So what a director is able to do is connect with the audience, and for me as an audience member, when I can connect with a film, and it speaks to me, and it doesn't just it's not just that popcorn, there's a message. That's always my favorite kind of movie. And you know I mean, what got you there's got to be something that got you to want to do this, right? So
Yeah,
how
I
did you get
mean
started?
it's not that dissimilar from you really. I think, I think all humans, we kind of have like a propensity to storytelling. It doesn't matter where you are on the planet. Movies are, in a weird way, it's kind of like the only universal language Earth has got. Like we can watch a Korean film and understand what it's trying to say thematically, even though you don't speak a word of the language. And
Exactly.
you can sit there and watch a silent film with a room full of people who don't speak the same language as you, and you all get it. So in a,
Right.
in a weird way, it's kind of like that one language that the whole planet speaks. And I kind of find that fascinating, and I've always really been interested in philosophy and storytelling. And I was real young when I decided I wanted to do this. I'm actually up visiting my parents at the moment because I'm back in England for a little bit. It's why I'm in their wonderful summer house in the bottom of the garden. i don't
I
normally keep the I don't normally keep the floral background just because.
I like it. I was gonna say something.
Yeah,
I was like, I dig it, man.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's nice.
yeah, I feel like it's working for me. But no, it's we were talking yesterday. They were threatening to get out the old VHSs, and I
oh
made my
man.
first film using action figures when I was like 11.
Right,
So in a weird
right.
way, I always knew this is what I was going to end up doing, but I kind of went a weird route. I'm self-taught, so I never went to study at university or college for filmmaking. Um, but I started my own business when I was 20. So that was like nearly 17 years ago now, and And they kind of like escalated to, from like festival videos and club videos for big name DJs, and then
Mhm.
I started doing their music videos. I think I ended up doing like 150 music videos or something like
Oh,
that. Yeah, like a lot. Especially
wow.
if you've ever watched dubstep videos, I tend to be the dude that was behind that stuff when that was,
Really?
yeah, yeah. And then
That wasn't something I came across in the information, honestly.
yeah, it kind of kept
That's
that quiet,
very
didn't I?
because I would have
Yeah, no.
known that. Listen, I go and do my, like, little research and stuff on anybody, even if it's Robert Downey, not that but even if it's
Yeah,
Robert Downey Jr., I'm still gonna go, make
yeah.
sure that I know every single thing that he's ever done, right? And
It's weird.
so I did not know that. That's interesting. So
My
how
first
was
my first big thing was I made this really low budget video with no crew for a track called Bass Cannon by Flux Pavilion, and it got like 40 million hits on YouTube and went to number one in the UK and stuff. And yeah, and it kind
and
of like launched my whole career. So I was like, oh, thanks for that.
so there you go, right? And
Yeah,
I think a lot. So what are your general thoughts on um, everyone being able to have a platform? Clearly, it works for you, right? But we talked about this with Chad, and when you give everyone a platform, you give everyone a
yeah,
platform.
that's it, right?
So, like, what do you think of how has the advent of social media affected you? Clearly, I mean, it's gotten you to a good
Yeah.
place. So,
It's a weird one. I kind of think, obviously, in years gone by, it was kind of easier to spot a loud voice because there wasn't so many people shouting, right? But
mm,
now it's just like an endless sea of people screaming, "Look at me!" So it's kind of hard to notice the talent in all of that. But in a weird way, I kind of feel like it's made it more. I mean, look, I don't think I would ever have made it to 9 feature films. 30 years ago. I don't have
right,
connections in the industry. I don't come from the correct place. But in a weird way, the sort of democratizing of everything, music, film, no matter what it is,
right.
it weirdly, I think if you're willing to sort of go the extra mile, anybody can pull off their goals now. And
Right.
my big advice to anyone is like I think the industry used to be, who do you know? Like, who do you know
Political,
who's gonna,
yeah, in a sense.
yeah. And now it's not. And really now it's like, what are you willing to sacrifice? Like, are you willing to do those 15, 16 hour days? Are you willing to not go, out with your friends on Friday and all this kind of stuff? And it's like, if you're willing to put in that time, suddenly the world's a little fairer in the sense
Mm,
that it's like, okay, well then maybe you'll get spotted. And in a weird way, I think me and Chad kind of products of that. Like, I mean, I'm not as involved in social media as Chad is. I mean,
right.
he's on it. Like, that guy
Yeah,
knows how to
he's on it,
yeah,
yeah.
like he knows how to mobilize a fan base. But for me, it's always been about, okay, I can use social networking to really just show my stuff off, but
Mm,
I still have to do a lot of the hard work myself. I have to show up to the film festivals. I have to try and meet the right people. And the big one is, just don't be bad with people's money. Like, if you say you're going to do something, like, actually deliver that.
right, and, I mean, Black Ops could speak on as well as, you know, the it can be intimidating, right? Because this is a medium that's very saturated. Like especially even where I come, like what I'm doing. Because I mean, I did go to school and I did want to go into filmmaking, and I chose a different path. Um, and all my decisions led me to here instead of there, and I'm happy. But it's definitely a very saturated market, and he can attest to it. So it really is a miracle. Like it's not maybe not a miracle, but you're a, you're you're a lucky you're lucky that
Yeah.
the talent got you noticed. Like of course you're talented. And by the way, I did watch Assailant, and now I'm gonna start going down the list. Um,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, so Assailant, how because for so it was delayed, right? Because
Yeah.
I
Yeah. So
believe
yeah, it was supposed to come out earlier in the year than I think it did, and I think there was a little COVID resurgence in the US, which delayed
right.
it slightly, I think.
And so that, we had Chad on as a way to talk about it. So I mean, how did you approach that? Now being who you are, like, what's your directorial style? How do you how do you control a film? And for some people, they don't really even know. Like, they know a director is in charge of certain things, but they don't know what a director actually does on a day to day basis. So maybe you could break that down a little.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean that film in itself was kind of weird because we were right in the middle of COVID when I got this phone call and asked me, did I want to come out to the Caribbean and shoot something? Um, and I think there was in this position where it was just like, okay, but we need to get some stuff made, and so I actually wrote that script in like 4 days, 5 days.
Oh, really?
While I was in quarantine in the Caribbean, and there was another script, there was like another project that was being developed at the same time, but I wasn't really feeling it. And I was developing this project at the same time, and yeah, weirdly, it was one of these things where it just dropped the script, and the buyers came on board really quickly, and then that's it. So we're making it. But to answer your question about like what do I see my job as? I guess like I've kind of said this before on other shows and stuff I've been on, but like I think that like my job is a problem solver, right? Like I have
Mhm.
like there's like 70 people on set, and they're all looking at you to kind of guide them in a direction, and on any given day there's like 50. I wake up and there's like 20 text messages, someone knocking on the hotel room doors, like this isn't working, this hasn't turned out correct, so and so hasn't shown up, and like my job, there's like two ways of handling that. You can either just freak out and scream at people, or you can be pragmatic, and like so my approach, I think, is like I'm a problem solver,
Right.
and I approach
That's a
every
great
day
way
like,
to look
okay,
at it.
yeah, I'm like, look, there's like 50 problems I have to sort out this morning, and they're all my fault because I said I wanted to make a movie. There's no give there's like no point in being angry at anybody else. This is entirely my fault. And so, okay, how do we approach this? How do we fix it? And I'm very proud to say that, because I think, there's a lot of emphasis when you're in the back of the industry, like the viewer, those IMDb reviews and those letterbox reviews and stuff, and what they don't see is there's actually like 70, 100 people at work every day, 6 days a week for 4 weeks,
Right.
and my priority is always those guys, like, so I'm kind
Yeah.
of proud to be like, I've never missed lunch, I've never done an overtime, and I'm kind of like, okay, let's make this the most fun environment for the people working with me. And in a
Right.
weird way, I think that's why people keep coming back. It's why named actors are like, hey, yeah, I'll work with you,
Right.
because it's it's
Yeah.
just
And
it's a job.
I'm
It's a
still,
job, right?
Keep a good
yeah.
environment. Yeah.
And Black Ops and I, we're always willing to be extras.
Yeah, sure, man.
We'll get coffee for you, or whatever. You just think about it.
What's
Hey,
your
listen,
Starbucks or Dunkin' order?
yeah. I'm
uh,
I'm one of those evil dudes. I'm just a pure black espresso guy, So I
all,
just
those are those are business though. That's
yeah,
business,
Duly
exactly.
noted.
right?
That's all
Um,
business. No, I
but
mean, listen, I'm about to start a new film out in the Caribbean, July. I've literally just wrapped one. Speaking of Zack Snyder, we had Marlon Ackerman, who was Silk
oh
Spectre.
yeah,
She was the lead in the film I just did. So, it's. But I think a lot of that is down to the word gets out. It's actually quite a small industry, and when you don't act
mm,
like a dick, the word gets out. This person is all right to work with, and that's
yeah,
kind of been I've kind of made it this far without. I mean, I don't have a bona fide hit under my belt yet. The budgets keep coming and the
right.
actors keep coming, and I think it's because I have this approach to work where it's like, look, my job is to tell a story that's cohesive, and if it connects with the audience, great. But it's also my job to not punish the crew, to look after the well-being of the actors as well. So it's kind of like a
'Cause
balancing act.
there are so many stories that I've come across. Most notably, or at least the one I was just thinking of, was Alan Ritchson uh, talking about his experience uh, in the Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, and those two films, and how they would leave them on set. They were the last to be the stars of the film. They're the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
left sitting on a sidewalk waiting for the last bus to pick them up and drive them, get them home
Because of all
after,
the prosthetics, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. And like he was like, we were treated so poorly, and like when you hear stories like that, it can like it starts to make you think. It's like, oh, how many more of these situations are out there that we just never heard about, right? Of
I
course,
mean,
Ray
listen,
Fisher.
listen, man. I've personally seen. I've been on other people's sets. I've been invited down, and you go and you hang out, and you just think, okay, wow, like this is not how you do it. And I think there's this weird emphasis in our industry where we put a lot of, but it's all about the art, and it's like,
Mm,
okay, yeah, I kind of respect that process, but at the same time, like I feel like being a pencil sketch artist is a more correct career for those people. It's like you can go and you can torture yourself all you want in your studio, right? But what you
mhm.
can't do is torture 100 people, 300 people on a set for months on end in pursuit of something, because at the end of the day, it is a business, and
Yeah,
you are when you come on board as a director, you are essentially taking the well-being of a lot of people into account, and you have to
right.
you have to weigh that up against your ego, like how much is my ego worth against the well-being of a lot of people. And for me, the answer has always been, well, it's always the well-being of the people that counts to me.
And
you know
but that is what is going to get you to where you need to go, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm you sound from just meeting you through the past couple weeks. No, you seem like a genuine person, and there's not many of them left, or at least
Well,
from my
thank you, man.
experience. So, with that being said, I really appreciate it. Um, you so. What is your, because you have a lot of, I mean, you've had what I would say a suspense thriller and action horror movie, action film. I mean, is that what you're most interested? I mean, you even read what it was, but best
Yeah,
thriller 2017 in the UK.
yeah.
So and then Black Site, which is the one of the ones as well I wanted to talk about.
I
But
mean, look, I've always described myself like the stories that I'm attracted to, not just like as in terms of making, but like my preferences in terms of stuff I'm going to go and watch is like I'm into survival stories. Like not,
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily matter
hmm
what genre it's in. If it's sci-fi, horror, thriller, it doesn't matter. But I mean, the thing that kind of fascinates me is what happens when you throw people into like a survival situation. And I think in a weird way, it's you can answer a lot of thematic questions about the human race in terms of, yeah, okay, let's say you've got an interesting like couple, like Assailant, for instance. It's about divorce. It's about
hmm
remembering what it is to work alongside someone that you used to work with, but you've forgotten how to do it. And
right.
and I'm like, okay, what's the best format for me to tell that in? And it's like, okay, well, let's have Casper Van Dien try and kill them for two
By the
hours.
way,
You know,
I was literally just gonna bring him up. Awesome. Like
yeah,
with between Faye and and Casper and Chad and Poppy, there was a lot of intensity because we watched I had watched half of it, and then I finished it last night, and I have to say, uh, wow, like he actually scared me at moments, like if
Casper is honestly not like, so basically I worked with him in a small capacity in like 2018, I think, on this space film we did called G-Lock. And I remember I'm a big Starship Troopers fan. It was actually the first R-rated movie I ever snuck into. I think we paid for like Tommy Lee Jones' Volcano and actually went and watched Starship Troopers, right? And and I've always, I told Casper off the bat, I was like, man, I'm a big Starship Troopers fan. And when we did this space film together, I was like, okay, I feel like there's something to this guy that no one's given him. And I'm kind of looking through his catalog, and I'm like, okay, no one's ever let him play just a complete bad guy. Like there's
psychopath.
no, yeah, there's no redeeming quality to this human. And so, when I pitched it at him, he was sort of like, wow, you thought of me for this? And I was like, yeah, I think you could be a great psycho. And weirdly, he'd just gone vegan as well. So he'd kind of lost a lot of weight. He'd lost a lot of
Right,
his muscle. And
and
he
it gives
just,
you
yeah.
when you change your eating style like that, it can stress you out. So he probably was like naturally stressed, and it
Yeah,
all
he
went into the
kind of
performance.
yeah, absolutely. He threw it all in, and I got to say, it's so funny working with him because he's not, and I kind of love this about him. I'm like not a big fan of the whole method acting stuff. I'm like, yo, it's hard enough all day, man. Can you just not do that in the cat? Um, but like Casper's like the ultimate version of he's terrifying in the scene, and then you go cut, and he's telling jokes, and he's like the happiest
Okay,
guy you've
yeah,
ever met. So
right.
he's just a joy to actually to be around. And me and him are I'd class him as like a close friend now. We talk all the time, and
Mhm.
he's in Thailand at the moment doing a movie. He's a great
Oh,
guy.
nice.
So if any directors are listening, you should cast Casper as a bad guy. He's great.
He really was. And in
Yeah.
Black Ops, I know, um, you're a big video gamer, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about video games, Tom, but
Yeah.
is there any like project? I mean, I, all of a sudden I started thinking like ever since we talked to Chad about a Call of Duty project, like you actually made a movie called Black Ops, which is ironic, but
Well, it
um,
wasn't actually called Black Ops. It was called Stairs, and then they changed the title to The Ascent in Europe. And then for some reason, the US were like Black Ops. And I was like, all right, sure, whatever.
they can do that without your permission.
They can
What?
definitely do that. Yeah, yeah,
I've heard
totally.
of it before,
Yeah,
like Bruce. There were a couple Bruce Lee movies that the title was changed for here.
yeah.
Um,
Only America has Black Ops. The rest of the world has The Ascent.
okay,
That's it.
so well,
Interesting.
because I'm American, that's what I knew it as. So
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
so part that was my fault, I guess. But
It's all good.
like, is there like I feel like you'd be great at like a Call of Duty project, but that's obviously because like you can see the success of Halo right now,
Yeah.
The
Well,
Witcher,
it's funny. So
video.
the guy playing I think it's Vanchak 134 in the Halo TV series is Bentley
Oh,
Kalu, who was he's in Black Ops, the film you just mentioned, and he's in Black Site for me. He was in my
Yep.
first ever film Pandorica. So super proud of Bentley. He's just rocketed, and now he's killing it as a Spartan. So I'm like, fair
oh,
play,
for
man.
sure. He's
Yeah.
done a great job, and I love the Halo show. Um, so
I think
it's really that's cool. That's cool. I didn't know
I
that.
was he was sending me photos from like he's like out chilling on set and stuff when they were shooting out in I think it was Bulgaria. They shot most of the show. So yeah,
Mhm.
no, I mean, look, I'd love to. I think there's a lot of like cool, interesting, smaller video game adaptions out there that possibly would fit well with someone like me. Where you
yeah,
could take it.
for sure.
So yeah, I mean, look, I'm not opposed to anything. I think for me, it always comes down to it's like, okay, I'm a specific kind of director where if you've got $4 million and you want me to make that look expensive for you, then yeah, you can call me. I don't know whether Halo would ever phone me up because I'm just not in that bracket.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I'd love to, and I think this is it. There's a lot of video games out there that I think it's weird
Oh,
when you
for
make a
sure.
video game. It's weird, right? Because you're trying to take like 18 hours, 24 hours of storytelling, and you're trying to like package it into 2 hours. It's a tough job, man. Like I've got maximum respect to anyone that actually pulls it off.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
becoming definitely more popular, which is good because video game movies had such a bad rap for a long time, or video game
Yeah,
adaptations, I should say, not because they're
yeah.
more than movies now too. But
yeah,
um, to speak on like how the art of filmmaking is changing with things like the volume, right?
yeah.
I mean, would that be something that
You know what?
would
I actually
be a
can't. I
dream
can't.
thing?
Yeah, I can't. I'm under some pretty strong NDAs at the moment, so I can't say too much. But I'm in the middle of a full Unreal Engine 5 project. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
so
what
yeah,
it's
Dude,
yeah.
it's amazing.
I'm deep in something now that you should see the results. Well, actually, there'll be some announcements and stuff around about Cannes about what we're up to. Um, but yeah, we're about 3.5 months into that process of working inside Unreal Engine. and kind of, in a weird way, doing this complete, flip on how you put out a movie, how you create a movie. It's
That's
kind of, I think it's going to be interesting to see what the future brings. But yeah, in a weird, it's made me love the possibility of video game engines even more.
It's
I think what
yeah,
Black Ops and I spoke about the other day with Chad was the lines of video game and like filmmaking are blurring. Like
Yeah,
they're crossing a lot these days. Like the
definitely
Mandalorian, um, even the Batman used
the
the
volume.
volume
the
at
volume.
points.
Yeah.
They
So
use it a lot, and you wouldn't even think of that. Like a lot of
Well, I
things.
mean, yeah, if
Yeah,
you think about it, like especially with the Batman. I mean, there's like the whole film is it's shot in either the dark or like perpetual twilight, right? So if I'm trying to shoot that rooftop scene where he's with Catwoman and the sun is going
yeah,
down, in reality, I've got maybe 45 minutes to
40
get that,
minutes. Yep,
but on the volume, I've got well, it's always
it's always dusk.
and
sunset.
that's something
So
that Matt Reeves said in the extra talking about the volume, which that's something that is definitely changing the game because a lot of productions and stuff are using that because it gives you so much opportunity to flesh out more scenes or kind of change stuff. And I just think it's definitely wild what you can do with the volume. And speaking of Unreal Engine 5, there's a Matrix demo that was kind of like a promotional thing for not only
yeah,
Unreal Engine 5,
Matrix
but
Awakens. Yeah, that was
yeah,
great.
it's just it really opened a lot of people's eyes, and people are starting to develop like Superman games and stuff like that. It's definitely probably one of the more unique engines that come out of late because it's so realistic, and I definitely understand why it's kind of getting mixed in with the film industry, not only just video games, because it's it's really wild of how engines have came from like the Xbox 360 now to the Series X and
And
how
beyond.
wild
Yeah.
technology has developed
I
in
mean,
such a short
the
time.
the thing with the Unreal Engine 5 stuff, and why that particular game engine has become the go-to for filmmakers. It's because of the real-time lighting. Like when you were, in previous iterations, it was all about ray tracing, and every time you make a lighting adjustment, you gotta go away and like have coffee for 4 hours and then come back, and you're like, oh, that's not right. And
Mhm.
it's like a frustrating process if you're trying to make a movie, especially
Right.
in the more independent scene. But with Unreal Engine 5, it's letting you real time readjust the lighting, real time adjust the backgrounds, real time add or take stuff away, and in a
And
weird way, that's kind of like giving the filmmaker God mode. Like, whoa, I can do whatever I want in real time. So
and
yeah,
and
I mean,
and it brings post-production into the actual process, like, or at
yeah.
least the volume,
Well, again, I can't say too much at this
Yeah,
stage.
that's okay,
Maybe,
that's
maybe,
okay.
maybe you guys can have me back on, and I can talk more freely like
Yeah,
later
no,
on in
for
the year when
sure.
it's out.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean,
I
like
would love to.
a lot of it is, you're essentially taking the production process and doing this to it.
Doing
Where
flopping it on its head, yep.
yeah, what is traditionally post is now your pre-production, and
Mhm,
yeah, it's crazy. But I got some seriously cool stuff to show you guys later in the year, basically.
and that's awesome. I'm looking forward to it. So, look at pencil it in. Um,
Good.
with oh god. So, with you had spoken about, you know, in the indie scene. Now, budgeting, right? Now, how how did the budgets like because we talked to Chad a little bit about it. It's a hard question to like how does the budget affect how you approach a film? Because CG is a huge thing now. So there's got to be a mix, or there if you're doing a sci-fi thriller, etc. Like, where's a lot of the money go? Like, in terms of where do you
Yeah,
prioritize?
yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, look, I've been to tons of film festivals, right? And I mean, it's a question like a lot of, I mean, I made my first film in October 2015, and then it's now like what, 7 years later, and
Hmm.
and I'm about to start film number 10. So to a lot of people, they're like, yeah, but how did you do that? And they're looking for like some sort of Like, okay, what's the budget trick? What did you do? And it's like, well,
Right.
there's not really a trick to it. What it really comes down to is it's in the concept at the beginning. It's like, I always try and push my own boundary a little bit. Okay, like
Right.
what haven't I done yet? Like I haven't made a horror film in bright sunlight, so that's kind of where Assailant came from, and the film that we just shot or saw them kind of was born out of that as well.
Right.
But it's in concept, right? Like if you sit down and your concept is just huge, you're like, okay, the Earth's being taken over by aliens. I need all these spaceships. We're gonna wipe out Manhattan. It's like, okay, whoa. Like, think about what you're doing. It's not to say that the concept doesn't work. Like I've dabbled with some big concept stuff. I've gone, okay, what's the biggest concept I can think of here? But then you got to find the story that's scalable within the context of it. Like, if you're a first time filmmaker, the reality is you're going to have to come up with something that proves to the industry that you can make a movie, right?
Mm.
Like,
Right.
no one's going to give you $2 million if you haven't got anything to show for it, right? And yeah, you can
Right.
go and make short films. You can kind of, you can work the industry, and you can, really get your name out there and kind of work your way up and prove yourself to producers. Or you can take the shortcut, right? And the shortcut is basically what I did. I was like, okay, I think I can get like 50,000 together. Like, what can I make for 50,000? And then you kind of start listing all the things you can do,
Right.
And so one of those was, well, we can shoot in the woods. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, right, okay, now what's the unsafe version of shooting in the woods with like 4 people? The safe version is it's daylight, and it's some sort of hostage situation. And then I was like, okay, the unsafe version is it's post-apocalyptic and it's entirely set at night. Let's do
Right.
that one. And so
Yeah.
that's what we did. We found, how do you make a £50,000, which is like what, like 75,000 US dollars? Like, how do you make a
Yes.
75,000 US post-apocalyptic film in the woods at night? And you can watch
Hmm.
the film and see how successful we were or weren't. But the fact is, what I did was show the industry, oh, that guy in 10 days managed to tell a cohesive story, and he didn't mess up, and he didn't overspend, he didn't go over budget. Like, I was able to prove to the industry, this is what happens when you give me money, and so,
Exactly.
and I think in a weird way, it's even easier now. I mean, I've just had a new iPhone 13 Pro Max or whatever, and I'm like,
The modes
oh
on it are
man,
unreal.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
there's nothing to stop you, right? Like if you own a car and you got like 3 actor friends, like, there's nothing to stop you writing a script for what you have. Okay, I've got a car, I've got 3 actor friends, I've got an iPhone,
And
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 there's
I got some
nothing,
locations in the back of my mind.
mate. You don't even need locations. Just drive your car into the middle of nowhere. The car breaks down, and now these 3 people are trapped there, and some shit
Yes.
goes down. Like, tell a story.
Right.
And
Right.
then you're gonna have that one thing that every other filmmaker that's hustling doesn't have. You're gonna have a movie. You can go, yeah, I made this, and it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a hit. It doesn't have to sell big, but it's out there, and you now have that one tool that will get the doors open for you. And so that's kind of my big advice is like, you just have to go and do it. You just go, right, I
That
can do this.
that's what I say. I say if you shoot it, put it out. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Consistency and just content. Get it out there. It doesn't matter, if you think it's bad.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Isn't it
You
like a PT Barnum quote? It's like, if you make it,
yes.
they'll come. That's it.
Yes.
That's it. If
Exactly.
you make it, they'll come. That's it.
And so, and even like with Black Site, now I hope I'm not butchering this. Did you make
No, no,
that in
go for it.
3.5 miles of tunnel?
Yeah, we did. So,
That's it.
I mean, look, I'm a big Lovecraft fan, and when we did Redwoods, that was kind of this Lovecraftian take on vampires, where I was like, this is purposely not going to make sense, and I think it's going to piss a load of people off. Fine, I'm all right with that. And I was in, where Black Site really came from. I was in a conversation with someone, and we were talking about genres that shouldn't go together. Like, a filmmaker should never tackle mixing these two genres. And somehow we ended up deciding that Lovecraftian action film was the worst idea ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. So that's where that came from. But
Bold.
again, it was, look, it's about leaning into what you can find, though. And I was like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're not going to have the budget. I mean, my background is in CGI to some degree, so I actually did. I think there was like 166 VFX
Shots.
shots in black,
Yeah.
but they're all done by me. Like I did every single one.
And you
Um,
taught yourself to do that? My God. For anyone who
That
doesn't
is
know, visual effects are the hard. If you ever want to try, oh God, what's the open source? Oh man, it's totally dropped my mind. There's
there's a
like an
bunch of
open
stuff out there.
source
Yeah,
that
look, I mean,
you can
After
even
Effects is probably
try.
your best. Yeah, it's like it's okay. It's kind of one of these things where you have to get into this like Zen headspace with CGI. You know what? I'm okay rotoscoping for the next 6 hours. This one shot, it's fine.
Yep.
Whatever.
Right.
If
Yep.
you can,
That's it,
if you can
right?
get your head,
Sacrificing time.
pretty much. Yeah,
Putting the work in, taking those
yeah.
15-hour days. Now you said
Well,
you
that's it. Black Site leveled me up as a filmmaker in terms of it made people go, all right, well, that's kind of. I mean, it was Epic Pictures that released it in the US through Dread Central, and
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people were like, okay, that's an ambitious movie. Like maybe we weren't successful in executing it, but like, yeah, I think the industry knew that we'd spent this tiny little budget on it. And we're like, okay, the fact that you had the balls to go and try that, or maybe we should give you some more money. So in a weird
risk,
way, I kind of owe a lot
yeah.
to Black Site.
risks, right? Risk taking. And
Yeah,
that's what a
you
lot of
just did what they said. Maybe it's you shouldn't do. You're like, all right, I'm gonna go with this. Love,
Yeah.
which that's pretty neat.
so you said that you were born in the wrong you, you were born in the wrong decade and that you should have been a filmmaker in the 80s, camera work wise, etc., so on
Yeah.
and so forth. So why is that?
I just think, the 80s was kind of one of these times where a lot of film.
What
I
a
mean, look,
what a
I make
time for
no.
movies, yeah.
Yeah, right. And
Right.
I make no like. I think a lot of filmmakers are so busy trying to insist there's something that they're not, right? I respect and appreciate a Robert Eggers art house film as much as the next guy. But if I tried that, it would be a disaster, man. Like I've not got that in me. Like what I am is like the perfect Canon films director. I would have made the best Chuck Norris ninja film ever. It's just and I know that. Like that's who I am. So like
Yes.
I don't try and pretend to be anything different. And
Well,
it's yeah. I just think the 80s would have been so much fun because it was that era of filmmaking where it was like, yeah, sure, have 10 million and go and
yeah.
do this crazy thing that
Right.
it just wouldn't happen today.
And so, what the everything that you've said so far kind of leads me to get away from it. But a lot of directors have come out and spoken out about the Marvel movies and how they're cookie cutter, etc. Insert bad quote from
Yeah.
Scorsese here. Um, so
Cinema.
it's not cinema. God, I mean, the list goes on and on. Now, could you ever see yourself? I mean, of course, working for Marvel Studios would be, I feel like, a lot of people's dream jobs, but they are very particular in how they make movies. And there are
Yeah.
certain directors that we've seen walk away. Scott Derrickson,
Yeah.
um,
Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright, thank you. And we've seen actors walked away. So, I mean, how do you feel about what they've done, accomplished, and could you ever see yourself doing it?
Yeah, look, like first and foremost, I've watched every Marvel film there is, and
That's my boy.
currently going through Moon Knight. So look,
Woo!
I'm a comic book guy. Growing up, I was really into DC more than Marvel personally.
Same.
Especially Superman stuff. Like I still think All Star Superman's like one of the best comic books ever put out there.
Yep.
But in a weird way, like what Marvel has done, okay, it's for a filmmaker like me, they've kind of taken the schlock that I make and made it like mainstream. But in a weird way, that also makes it harder for somebody like me to make that schlock because there's now the audience expectations for what that kind of
Yeah,
film
you brought an
needs
A
to be.
plus home to mom, and now she expects it
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
every class. needs to
And
be
you
A
can see
plus.
it. You can kind of see it in like some of the review reactions from customers to the kind of movies that I make, where they're almost saying, because the plot lines are so kind of out there and nuts, they're like, oh well, I was expecting this, and it's like, and actually that's Marvel's doing. They've kind of taken that realm of these, like, I mean, look at like For Ragnarok. If that's not like 80s hair metal
Oh God,
filmmaking,
yes.
Very
Oh
you know,
God,
much.
yes.
I
Very
don't know.
much.
And it's kind of like they've kind of taken that and they've made it this very mainstream, very expensive looking product, which is awesome for as a comic fan to be like, oh wow, that's all that stuff I loved up on screen,
Yes.
with all this money and attention being spent on it. But in a weird way, it kind of makes making those kind of films much more difficult at my end. And I think it's why a lot of indie filmmakers don't even attempt it. They're like, oh, I'll just go and do art house films because
Right.
that's the area that we're in now. Whereas there's
Yep.
a few of us are like, nah, it's fine. Redbox will pick this up. It's gonna be great. So we just
Right.
go for it. And I don't know, but yeah, look, if Marvel came and phoned me and said, do you want to work on something? I'll be all over that. Mostly because think of the house I could buy at the end of it. It'd be great.
Right. Exactly. See?
Yeah.
At least someone knows.
But if you were to do any sort of Marvel film or anything like that, what character would you love to work with
Or
and kind of
DC,
create
because
or
he
DC? Well, yeah,
clearly
true,
and
true.
yeah, maybe don't say Superman.
No, yeah, I mean, look, I think Superman's everybody's dream project, and I'm personally one of these people that I don't feel like we've seen a definitive Superman movie yet.
Oh no. Those wrong
Personally,
things. I guess I gotta cut that out. God damn you.
but no,
Our audience is really big into the Snyder films.
Oh yeah,
So
the Man of Steel,
I
all that.
respected Man of Steel. I was like, okay, this is cool, but it's
but I know
not.
what you're
I guess,
talking about.
yeah,
Yeah,
There's
I guess,
yeah.
every single person, even us Snyder DC fans know that Superman wasn't the Boy Scout that
no.
Superman ends up being. But guys, he's only been a superhero for 3 years.
It's the
I think,
road to get there.
Yeah.
yeah, I think the answer to your question would be I'd actually like to do like a Joker version of Lex Luthor with hardly any Superman in it at all, but where you just tell this tale of a guy who's like, this. I think you could kind of take there's an iteration of this where Lex Luthor loses his hair because of the Smallville meteorite crash and because Superman comes to Earth. And, he sees this guy as like someone who's ruined his whole life, man. And following this guy's like descent into madness, where he becomes obsessed with it. I think
Oh,
there's a cool, I
psychological
think there's,
film.
yeah, like Joker, but with Lex Luthor, I
But with
think would probably
Lex,
be my
yeah.
dream project. That's kind of what I do.
That sounds awesome.
Listen,
Yeah.
Warner is currently open to anything. So
Well, if they're listening, that's what
we'll
I would
pitch.
do.
I'll pitch it to them for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They did talk. There are people on the internet have asked after Joker came out. I did see a lot of um, not speculation because it wasn't speculation, but a want to see more villains explored the way that the Joker was
Yeah.
explored. And I think
I mean, it's
numero
a
uno
crying
up there
shame,
is Lex.
mate. It's such a shame that we never got Gareth Evans, who made the Raid, that we never got his Deathstroke film. I mean, imagine how awesome that would have been. Just that would have been next level. Like
Yeah,
so
it would
it's
have
a
been.
shame we don't things like that don't exist. But yeah, I don't know,
It
man.
definitely would have been.
I think the audience. I think I like what Zack Snyder did with Superman, and I think that the audience reaction, like the fan base behind the Snyderverse, just shows you like you don't have to be like slavish to the
Yeah.
source material as long as you find a way to connect. You can take the elements you like and you can remix some new stuff in.
Yeah,
So I kind of find that interesting.
Adaptation.
that's what it's
But
all about.
isn't it
Exactly.
weird though? Like the Marvel fan base, I think are way more accepting of adaptation than the DC
Yeah.
fan base.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Oh yeah, clearly.
For
Especially with Gore the God Butcher, especially the
Yeah.
design from the character, from the action figure boxes and the kind of like the leaked set photos. I mean, it's definitely different
I think they're
from the
changing them.
source material. But yeah, there's definitely gonna be something behind it because the thing with at least Marvel and DC is that they always have to come. They always have a plan. So if they change something, there's definitely gonna be an explanation for it, and answers to why they changed certain things, or there sometimes isn't. So,
Yeah.
um, but that's just all part of the course for adapting a comic book source and developing it into this major film. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's built in. There's a built-in audience that's going to, if you do something wrong, they're calling it out.
Yeah.
exactly with Halo
I mean,
as
it's
well.
yeah. I mean, Halo's getting called out hard, but
Oh
I mean, I
yeah,
Yeah,
think
with
oh yeah.
Superman's a hard one because essentially for a lot of filmmakers, it's like, okay, here's a character. I mean, he can actually do it. I mean, he's indestructible,
mm.
literally. You know, and in a weird way, it kind of makes the filmmakers they constantly reach for, okay, what's more indestructible than indestructible? So he's got something to punch,
Well,
and
guess
you're like,
what?
okay, yeah,
Well, no, and I'm being serious.
yeah,
Honestly, that's what Superman and Lois did right, or is doing
yeah,
right.
for
Is you know
sure,
what his biggest weakness is? His
yeah,
family,
yeah. It's
right? That's what makes him indestructible, or
Makes him
that's what
human.
makes him vulnerable. I should say is his
yeah,
family. So what and listen, the CW shows are definitely not my cup of tea anymore.
mm,
I like them, when they started, but they've gotten really campy. But Superman and Lois has done a good job of showing a
yeah.
Superman that is the Man of Steel, but has a family, and he's like that's his
There's more
But
than
they
just the
kryptonite.
cape.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly, and that's the key to that character, in my opinion. Is and like I understand, like movie rules. Like if you're going to do a big screen adaptation, like that's the luxury of Superman and Lois, right? Like we're expecting a
yeah,
character drama, so we're okay with it, right? But like if the rules of filmmaking dictate a finale, if you're going to put him up on screen, like he's got to have a showdown with someone, and I
you're
just think
exactly
there's
right. Yeah,
but there's cooler ways of doing it, and I don't know, like one of the weird ideas I had for that character is, like Lex Luthor. There's a lot of mythology where he loses his hair because of kryptonite, because of that stuff, and it's like, cool, just give him kryptonite poisoning, and now Superman like turns weak when he's around him. Now you can have your showdown at the end, in a way that's more grounded and realistic. I think there's things you can do with that character that I just think Hollywood doesn't seem to want to do at the moment, because it's all about pushing spectacle, which I get, but films like the Batman prove actually we
yeah.
kind of like these weird, seven David Fincher style versions of these characters as well.
Oh, yes.
And
I'm
those are,
actually
I
gonna
think
watch it
it's such a
today
great.
again.
Ah, I just think like the opening scene with the Riddler, and obviously I think it's the mayor, where the Riddler's just kind of like just sit on a frame or sit just still, and then all of a sudden you just see the Riddler in the background just because of the reflection of the glasses, and then all of a sudden it's just dead quiet, and then he just screams and attacks. Like those horror aspects definitely like pushing them into kind of like the Batman is such a good thing because I mean you think about Batman's story and all that what they're trying to do with that film, it definitely makes sense. And I definitely see a lot of horror aspects, especially with storytelling and kind of the way they
Yeah.
work the camera being
Yeah.
I
implemented
mean,
in a lot of these movies.
that deleted scene with Barry Keoghan as the Joker was like pure horror film. I can
Yeah,
almost see why they deleted it because they were like, okay, this is
I
going to
don't
push the
think it.
rating up.
Yeah, I don't think that would have fit in the film.
No, it just
Personally,
yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah, it was.
I'm not so sure I enjoyed it. It was horror, yes. I'm not sure I enjoyed it yet. I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but
It's
I think the
definitely
film was leaning too hard into Seven to also be Silence of the Lambs at the exact same time, but it's
yeah.
can't do them both, right?
yeah. I just think that scene would have
Hey,
definitely
maybe he could
distracted the audience. I think what they did with just the Riddler and then kind of tease the Joker was perfect because
with
you
the
don't
talk through
distract.
the cell. Yeah,
Yeah, you
exactly.
don't
Well,
distract the
also,
audience too much, but
yeah, now they don't have to commit to that design as well. They can be like, ah, yeah, we're gonna go
it's
with
just a
something else.
deleted scene, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not
No,
gonna be.
no,
exactly.
no, 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 exactly. And I'm hoping that they don't, because like I don't know. I'm not gonna get into that today. But
Yeah, I feel like you've had this
it's
conversation too much.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
too much. But I mean, so as a director, or I mean, you didn't take the traditional path of of getting there. but what was one of your favorite projects to work on, or was there a moment that sticks out to you as like the most influential, like maybe learning moment, or something that taught you, like, listen, it taught you something that you'll take with you forever?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I kind of feel like, everything I'm doing is like this is an ongoing learning process where, everything I've done has some degree of mistake in it. Sometimes it's like, okay, that just isn't a good film, Tom. Like, what did you do that for? You know, and then and sometimes it's like, oh, you were close. And I think the whole thing is really about this kind of refining process, where I think if you ever look at your work as a film director and go, "Oh, I killed it. I'm so good." Like, just quit then. Go and do something else, man. Like, that's the whole point of this is to try to keep continually growing as an artist. And we're fortunate in this industry because if I was a musician, there's kind of there's like a shelf life to that, right? And same with being a professional sportsman, or a lot of creative industries have this shelf life, and directing doesn't. Like, directing is, hey, you can be 85 like Ridley Scott and still putting 2 films a year out. And that affords you this opportunity to continually learn from what you did wrong last time. And I don't care who you are, you definitely did something wrong on the last film. You definitely made a poor choice somewhere, and it's about trying to learn from those and refine them. But at the same time, I'm super proud of everything. I think sometimes it's crazy. There was a moment recently, and I was on a boat. Right, okay, this sounds so like douchey. I'm really sorry, but you did
It's okay.
ask.
No.
But like, we're on this we just wrapped this film that we did, us or them,
Yep.
and we're on this boat in the Caribbean, like celebrating,
Of
and like
course.
sailing from one island to the next island, and there's this big volcano and stuff, and I like look around at all the people that have, because I'm like very loyal to my crew, and I'm looking at all these people that have been on this journey with me for the last 10 years, and I'm like, look what we did, like
Yeah.
look what we're doing. And it was
Right.
this crazy moment where I think all of us kind of stopped and were just like, look what we did. Like, how are we on a boat like here, dude? Like we made a £50,000 film in the woods in outside of London. It was miserable, and now we're doing this. And I think
Right.
that kind of made me feel awesome. It kind of gave me this fire where it was like, okay, imagine what we can do 10 years from now if we just
Right.
keep our heads down and work hard. Make sure no one's a douchebag, and we keep doing this. Like, imagine what we can pull off.
And I am fully, like, I am so behind you, because now, hey, I like friends in high places. So,
Good. It's a good place to have friends.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, no, no. But I mean, you've definitely, there's something about you, man. You got like some spark in you. I
Thanks.
don't know if it's creatively or if it's just like a genuinely like good person. Um, but I mean, what, as you're only 37, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Only,
I turned,
only,
I turned, I turned 37 in October.
'cause, yeah,
Actually,
you
yeah,
said 20 and
yeah,
then plus 17 for
yeah, yeah,
37.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
So it's coming up to
So
that. Yeah.
you still have a long time ahead of you. Now, did you find it hard? Because I've heard of this before. The younger people can have a harder time directing because maybe people don't take them as serious. Like,
Yeah,
you're younger than me. Well, like that kind of
yeah,
thing. Pettiness. I've heard it before. So I only ask because of course
yeah,
you're younger.
yeah. Listen, I mean, it happens a lot actually. Bizarrely, it's normally with older male actors
Mm,
tend to be the one. It's I like to try and get out ahead of that as well, and make sure that there's a relationship between us before they come to set. It's not always possible. I won't mention any names, but I
yeah.
did have I had an incident with one very very well known actor who he just didn't take kindly. He's calling me boy. Didn't
Oh
like
yeah.
at all.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny because in that situation, it's like, that's where you have to know how to make sure, well, everybody else is still on your side,
Mm.
and then these people learn very fast. Those kinds of people learn very quick, okay, that's not a button you should push too hard on,
Yeah.
and but it sucks, to be honest. It's like, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's one of those things, no one should ever come to work with that attitude. No one should ever come, like if you sign on to something, it's about collaborating and working together. And the thing with being a film director is, and I try and explain, like we have like a meeting at the beginning of every
Yeah.
movie I do, and I sort of say to all the crew, and I say the same to the cast. I'm like, look, for everybody here, this is like a cool job, and I promise I won't be a douche. I promise, I won't do excessive hours. Lunch break will always be lunch break, etc., etc. But you also have to respect that. I'm putting my neck on the chopping block, because if this film sucks, everybody here has got another credit, and they paid their rent and their bills for the next 2 months, and then you move on to the next film. But that guillotine comes down, and I never get to work again. So
Yes.
let's just try and keep it collaborative, but remember that all the risk is essentially on me and the producers. Like, we're the
Right.
ones who go down, and it's not you. And so I think when you explain that and you get on a level with people, most of the time everybody goes, "All right, cool. I
Yeah.
see. I kind of
Yeah.
I see where you're
I
coming
never
from."
thought about I never thought about that. It
Yeah,
really is. It's you and the
how many?
even some of the
But
producers can get away with,
yeah.
but you
Well,
can't.
they won't get away with the loss of money,
The
right?
loss
They'll be
of
like,
money,
okay,
yeah, of
okay,
course.
like, you guys lost my money, and then the director, it's like, like a critic doesn't care whether we had a really big problem with the makeup department, or the costumes weren't working, or the art department props and stuff. Like, a reviewer won't care. They'll just say Tom Paton has terrible taste in makeup. That's it. Like, okay, yeah, sure, got it. So you have to. But it's also about understanding. It's like, I can't do those jobs. Like, if I could make a movie on my own, then I would. I wouldn't need 60 people. So it's
Right.
about respecting that. Every single person there is there because they can do something that I can't do. And so it's this trade-off where it's like, okay, you don't make me look bad, and I won't make you look bad. And I said, I promise I won't treat you bad. And we do that kind of trade-off. And I think most people get it. Especially when, if you take that approach with some of the older people who look at this like baby face and think, oh God,
I
what's
have
going
it
on
too.
here?
Trust
So,
me. I'm 29, right? So I
yeah,
have a baby face, and you know what I mean. I've always been in like management at work, and so that it's something that hits home for me as well, is like not being
yeah,
taken seriously sometimes.
yeah,
And it's frustrating, and it can get frustrating, and then you can start to lose sight, or lose yourself in that. Like,
yeah,
you start asking yourself, like, damn, do I deserve this? Like, should I be here? What
yeah.
what's the difference between me and him,
Well,
or him and
it's
I?
like it's a philosophical question, really. It's like, I'm a big believer in like that, like, we all should have the same opportunity, like to go for it. But it's just part of life. Like, some people will hit their stride faster than other people, and it's like, it's not saying that those people who are later down the line won't also hit their stride and maybe surpass you. It's just, it happened for you sooner. That was all. And I think that can be a hard pill to swallow for some people. If you've been grinding away for like 30 years, and you're like, I still haven't got my first film made, and this look at this idiot kid, and he's got like
He's
9
got
films
like
under his
10.
belt. It's like yeah, and I kind of try to put myself in their shoes, and I'm like, yeah, I'd probably be annoyed at me as well, but
Right. That's funny. Uh,
Yeah. But I know we touched on method acting earlier, but I obviously there's a lot of stuff coming out about Jared Leto on the set of Morbius, and all these other actors, from a lot of them are from Marvel and DC, have come out and just kind of said, yeah, method acting is not the thing. But kind of, what's your take on method acting, and has anyone method acted on your set,
well,
and what was that like?
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how I carefully word all this. Look, I mean, I agree. I think there was like that Robert Patterson quote that he said a few weeks ago, and I can't agree more. It's like, when someone's method acting, it's never when they're like playing the nicest guy on earth, right? Like, no one's method acting the nicest man on earth, and everyone's going, "Oh my god, this is such a nice person." Like, they only want to method act when the character is a massive dick. Like, oh, now I want to method act, and it's almost like this free pass to I don't know, get away with stuff that you definitely couldn't get away with otherwise. Otherwise, why don't you method act every character that comes away? And like, that's the thing. And I tend to think these method acts, they don't pick parts that would require them to stay in character as a really nice person. They only pick the parts that allow them to indulge this darker side of them. And
Right.
it,
So,
and
the
I'm not saying it can't yield. It can yield great acting results. But I think there's that famous story where Dustin Hoffman went full
well,
method.
Heath Ledger
Yeah,
died because of it.
yeah. But I mean, yeah,
He
Dustin
literally,
Hoffman.
yeah. But I
Yeah,
don't
I
know the
mean,
Dustin Hoffman one.
yeah. So I can't remember the film it was on, but he was with Laurence Olivier, right? And it's a Dustin Hoffman spends like a week straight getting drunk and refusing to sleep so that he looked a mess,
Oh
you know.
my God.
And then he comes to set and he says to Laurence Olivier, he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been up all week. I really stayed in character all week." And Laurence Olivier was like, "Why don't you try acting, darling?" And walked off. And I kind of agree with that. I'm like, yeah, your job, man. Like, imagine if I stayed in directing mode all the time. Like, me, like us three went to the bar and I was like, "Well, we're not doing this. We're going over here now." You'd be like, "I hate this guy. Like, why wouldn't he come out of this mode?" Like that to me is just like there's some sort of underlying, insecurity there about your ability to perform. And I think there's so many examples of great performances, and the actor wasn't a douche. And Heath Ledger is a weird one, right? Because he might have stayed in character, but he took him, like, it's like wildly reported. The minute they were like cut, he took himself away from everyone, and he stayed in
Yeah,
the headspace, but he
yeah.
didn't behave poorly. And that's the thing.
Erratically.
It's like if you want to stay
Yeah.
in, yeah,
So
if
it
you
was
want to stay in your
Marathon
headspace,
Man,
that's
by the
great.
way. It was
Oh, well,
Marathon
yeah,
Man
there you go.
for Dustin Hoff. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
looked it up.
Well, I
So
guess he did a marathon of his
yeah,
performance, I guess,
yeah, a
beforehand.
yeah.
7-day marathon of terror. But Heath was actually like there's the famous shot now of Heath like when Christian Bale's Batman is riding towards him and then
Yeah,
veers off, and then there's the he, like gets shocked after. Well, like during the break on the scene, he was skateboarding like in as the Joker.
yeah,
So like yeah, you're right. He stayed in character, but was either locked away in a hotel
yeah,
room, like doing the Joker Diaries, which are so if you
yeah,
haven't ever checked out the writings,
yeah.
it's hard to read, but it's hard to wrap your head around. But I mean, he definitely he was iconic, and
But this
that's
is it.
that's what sucks.
Yeah, and I think that the key to his type of method acting, and like again, I don't necessarily have a problem with method acting. I have a problem with poor behavior, right? And I think Heath Ledger is a great example of someone who stayed in the headspace, but he
Mm,
didn't abuse fellow cast members and crew members. He didn't make the director's life miserable. He didn't, like, every time one of these actors is behaving poorly rather than staying in a headspace, I can't help but think, I know for a fact that I've probably employed 3 PAs that are having to put up with that. And I'm not seeing the bulk of it, and they're not reporting it either. And I think, well, that's probably not okay. So,
yeah, I'm on your level with that, but um, I mean, uh, s- so what's the next thing that you have coming out that you can say? Actually, was there one that you can say?
so we just shot a movie called Us or Them. Same
That was
production
okay.
company
That
that does
was
this.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that was it.
So
Okay.
same production company that we did Assailant with. Very kindly offered for me to come back and shoot something else. This one's much more of a straight horror film, I guess, in the sense that
Oh,
it's
okay.
But again, I tried to like push myself. It was one of these things. It's like, okay, what shouldn't you do? Like, you shouldn't make a film with two people sat at a table. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's make the definitive people sat at a table horror movie, and
Well, oh my
y-
god, like, but remember, yeah, I hope you see 12 Cloverfield Lane.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, 10 Cloverfield
take
Lane, yeah.
what 12? What the fuck? Where did I miss
just
that?
just had to.
Thanks for the correction, as I'm an idiot. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
good film.
take away the ending, right? Like the CGI, like the big CGI ending. But like that, for the most part, that movie takes place in one location, like in a real tense situation. So if done properly, those can be it's really thrilling and terrifying.
I think that was. I think it was like we. What I was really looking at was this. Was the Ryan Reynolds film Buried? You know, he's just in the. He's in a
Oh
coffin,
yeah.
Yes,
and I'm like,
great,
okay.
great movie.
And I'm like, okay, listen, we can do this. And I got, I've got a writing partner called Nicole Bartlett. And we kind of hashed this story out, and she did a great job on the script for this. And yeah, we shot it. We shot it over a 3 week window in the Caribbean recently. Just wrapped. Marlon Ackerman is playing the villain in it. So
Mm,
again, it's kind of a weird side. She's known for being Silk
being
Spectre.
someone.
So it's
Yeah.
like, so suddenly be okay. She's the bad guy. And we got Jack Donnelly and a guy called Wayne Gordon in it. But
Okay.
it's about these two friends who agree to take part in opportunity to win 20 million, and just really getting way over their heads, way too far.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I'm proud of it in the sense that it's very funny and it keeps
Well,
ratcheting up. I think the best way to describe it is like the most messed up Black Mirror episode is kind of what we did.
yeah, well, I mean, hey, if it's possible, let me know, and if it can be seen a little early, and then have you on to
Sure.
talk about it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, sure.
something we usually do over at GWW, but like for screener wise. But I mean, I'm a huge fan of those style movies. So
Yeah.
Same here, same
like
here.
so I know we would definitely love to
Yeah,
do as
I'm really
much.
proud of it. It's just one of these films where it's like, in theory, it shouldn't work, but as soon as we started putting the pieces together and the script came in, and I think everybody could see straight away, it was like, okay, if you do pull this off, this could be really cool. It's kind of
Right.
the timing was good as well, obviously with Squid Games and stuff. But I guess like Squid Games about like what would you do for money, right? And Us or Them is about why are you watching people get messed up for money? Like what's wrong with
Right.
you? And
Yeah.
it's kind of like
Yeah.
two different parallels. So yeah, it's going to be a cool film. I think we're in the editing process now, so fingers crossed for me.
Yeah. No, for sure. Sounds really fun. And so you uh t- at Tom Patton Films on Twitter.
Yeah,
It'll be super. It'll be under you
yeah.
after. But and then do you have any other place that they like? Some people have websites,
Yeah, no,
or
I'm
is it
just
just
on.
Twitter?
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. Those are
All
the
right.
those are the two places you can come and
So
if
at
you like looking at pictures of sunsets, my Instagram story is the place to go. So love a sunset.
oh god. And then to Mr. Black Ops, where can they find you and continue the conversation?
Well, you guys can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Black Ops JB.
All right. Hey, boys, thank you so much. This was really fun, and I really look forward to having you guys back. And stick around. And we'll chat before you go. All right, so thank you everyone for tuning in today. Really fun conversation today with Black Ops and Tom Paton, director of Assailant, and plenty of other films. So check out his catalog, and he'll definitely be back soon. And thank you to everyone who watched this video. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time, which will be tomorrow night. And have a good night.